Hi, welcome back to Educator.com. This lesson is on the economics of environmental issues. All right, an overview of the economics of environmental issues. It's not all about money. Money does have something to do with it, of course, but it's more about how to persuade people with different mechanisms, with different ways to reduce pollution and not damage the environment over time, while at the same time making a profitable business happen, to end up making a livelihood on a business. So policy instruments in terms of how we go about implementing these ends is what we do as a society, what we can do, and how we do it. So sometimes how we do it ends up being governmental regulation. Because if people are left to their own devices and to just pursue profit without any kind of regulation, a lot of times that leads to tragedy, and we'll get to that a little bit later in this lesson. If people can be persuaded with kind of an ethical slant, that might persuade them to actually adjust what they're doing in terms of polluting the environment or damaging a resource. Decision-making comes down to tangible factors. This is what you can touch, buy, sell. Little cursive for you. Tangible in general means, you can actually feel it, you can touch it. So in terms of decision-making with environmental economics, you can easily calculate, the value of something when you can touch it, and you can buy it, and you can sell it. And that's something that makes sense to people. But intangible factors, the value of those is definitely something you can argue with other people. Intangible factors, could be when you look outside and you see, the beauty of a hillside with all those trees. That's an intangible factor. The exact value of that, depending on who you ask, it's going to get a different answer. In terms of having an unpolluted atmosphere or fairly unpolluted atmosphere, that's an intangible factor. So these two together affects our decision making. Public service functions. Public service functions has to do with natural mechanisms in the environment that have nothing directly to do with our actions that end up helping us. So you have cases where there's a marsh or a bog, something of that nature, where you have a toxin that's in there, and over time there's a natural mechanism that reduces the toxicity. Awesome! It's a public service function, and it's considered natural capital because it's helping us achieve our ends, what we want to have happen, without us having to spend money or put any effort directly into it. Bacteria is definitely an example of that. So bacteria provides us a natural capital. And in that case I gave you with a marsh where toxicity is reduced somehow, oftentimes bacteria, through just natural processes, them doing what their cells do, will break down a toxin. And that's great. Pollinators is another source of natural capital that provides a public service. Pollinators, which includes bees, of course, bats, birds, and other organisms, there's estimates that their pollinating activity gives us 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we consume, approximately, which is amazing to think about. That when you consider the food you eat in a day, about 33% of it you can thank bees, birds, and bats, etc. That's billions of dollars worth of natural capital every year, just in the United States. Worldwide, wow, I mean, it's at least hundreds of billions. The trouble is that when you consider pollinators, especially bees, there's something known as CCD, colony collapse disorder. In the last few decades, it's been observed that the prevalence of bees has significantly dropped. The number of bees and the number of colonies just is on a decline. Why? There's a lot of theories about this, but regardless of why it's happening, it's a dangerous proposition that if all the pollinators go away, or the majority of the pollinators go away, it's much harder to provide man-hours to actually do the pollinating that this natural capital was providing us. So one of the theories, one of the best theories I've heard of is the rise of electronic usage over the last couple decades could have something to do with it. The effects of cell phones, satellites, etc., all these different electronics that don't seem to bother us consciously may be having a negative effect on bees in their way of life. So we'll see if science can figure that out in the near future.